All right, so you want the inside scoop on becoming a printed circuit board assembler.
Well, we're cracking open RoleCatcher's career guide today to get all the details for you.
Okay.
And let me tell you, this isn't your grandpa's assembly line anymore.
Right, right. It's really interesting, actually,
Yeah.
because this guide doesn't just, like, list the duties,
Yeah.
It kind of reveals how the job itself is being, like, reshaped by all this new tech.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, steady hands still matter, of course,
Right.
but so does keeping pace with robots.
Oh, wow.
That's where I think the real future of this whole career lies.
Okay, so are we talking about automation like taking over? Should I be worried?
I wouldn't say worried, no.
Yeah.
More like think of it as a partnership.
Yep.
The guide breaks down what a PCB assembler's day actually looks like.
Yep.
And it's this really cool blend of that old school, blueprint reading. But increasingly, it's about working with automated machinery.
Oh, okay.
Like imagine using a high-powered microscope, right, to put a component precisely in place.
Wow.
And then a robot arm comes in and just like perfectly solders it.
Oh, wow.
It's like high-tech teamwork.
Okay, yeah, that does sound a lot cooler than I was picturing.
Right.
But let's be real, we're still talking about factories here, right? So what's the work environment actually like?
Well, it's not always, that spotless, clean room job, if that's what you're thinking.
Right.
We are talking about production facilities here.
Yeah.
Which means noise, there's potential chemical exposure. The guide doesn't really sugarcoat that.
Okay.
But I think that's why the safety gear is like non-negotiable.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is where I think all those automation trends kind of come back in.
Okay.
Because as robots kind of take over more of those repetitive tasks, the assembler's role becomes less about always being hands-on all the time and more about overseeing the process, troubleshooting if something goes wrong, and really ensuring that like quality control.
So it's not just about learning to do the job, it's about learning to adapt as the job changes.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
This career path is sounding less like a straight line and more like a choose-your-own-adventure here.
It really is. And, the guide makes it super clear that to actually thrive in this kind of field, continuous learning is just like non-negotiable. You're not just like assembling circuits, right?
Right.
You're assembling an entire career, a career that can actually evolve with you as you learn.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so let's get into the pros and cons here.
Okay.
Directly from the source.
Yeah.
What does the guide highlight as the good, the repetitive, and let's be honest, the potentially fumey aspects of this job?
Okay. So on the plus side, right?
Yeah.
You are creating something tangible.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating something that's often at the forefront of technology.
That's cool.
And from what I'm seeing, the demand for skilled assemblers seems pretty good.
Okay.
Like it's pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've been saying, there's real potential to move up as that tech evolves. But you got to be proactive,
Yeah. Be ready for it.
Yeah.
So it's not all like high-tech perks and building the future, right?
Right.
There's got to be a flip side.
There is. The guide's pretty honest, about the repetitive nature of some of the tasks. It mentions potential for eye strain, you could get backaches, basically the kind of physical tolls that come with doing really precise, detail-oriented work,
Right.
often in the same position for, hours.
Right. Makes sense.
And yeah, there is the exposure to chemicals, like we said.
Yeah.
Hence the emphasis on the safety gear.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say a deal breaker, but you need to be aware.
Be aware of what you're getting into.
Exactly.
The good and the challenging, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the guide also kind of hints that specializations are really key for people who want to, like, really climb the ladder in PCB assembly.
Oh, yeah.
What's the deal with that?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
You've got your general practitioner doctor, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got your, like, cardiothoracic surgeon.
Okay.
Both essential in the medical field,
Right.
but with totally different specialties.
Okay.
It's the same with PCB assembly.
Interesting.
The guide is saying that niching down, like finding that thing you're really good at, that's how you become super highly sought after.
Oh, wow.
Now, it doesn't actually tell you, like, a list of what those niches are,
Okay.
but that's where your research comes in.
Okay.
What kind of electronics get you fired up,
So are we talking like if you're really into sustainable tech, you could specialize in assembling like solar panels.
Right.
Or if you're a gamer, you could go deep on the latest like console components.
Yeah. You're getting it.
Okay.
The guide really emphasizes that, connecting your own personal passions with that evolving tech.
That's cool.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
As for the education, it doesn't really give you like an average level of education needed.
Right.
But it really leans hard on the job training.
Okay.
And getting those certifications.
Okay.
So, a high school diploma, that might get your foot in the door.
Right.
But it's those extra credentials that really prove like you're serious.
Yeah. It's like instead of saying I'm a fast learner, you're showing up with a JSTD 001 certification.
Exactly.
And you're proving like I have the skills to back it up.
Yes. You've got the knowledge.
Okay. Speaking of skills, the guide really does a deep dive into what PCB assemblers actually need to know. And it's not just soldering, is it?
It's way more than just soldering.
Okay.
So get this. Operations monitoring. That makes up, on average, like half the job.
Wow. Okay, that's way more involved than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, what does operations monitoring even mean for, like, a PCB assembler?
So think of it this way. Imagine you're not just putting together a puzzle. You're also responsible for making sure all the pieces are the right shape and the size and the color before they even get to your workstation.
Okay.
You're constantly checking for defects, making sure all the equipment is calibrated right. And basically, like, you are the eyes and ears of that entire assembly process.
So you're trying to catch those tiny errors before they become big problems down the line.
Yes, 100%.
Which makes sense because the guide also mentions that over half the job needs, like, you need a knowledge of computers and electronics.
Right.
This isn't like plugging in a soldering iron here.
No. It's much deeper than that.
Okay.
Because imagine you're working on a board, right? And it's got hundreds, maybe even thousands of these tiny little components.
Oh, wow.
You need to be able to, you got to follow the blueprint, of course.
Right.
But you also have to understand why those pieces are where they are.
Right.
Like, how do they interact with all the other pieces on the board? What happens if one of them is even a little bit off?
Oh, wow.
It's a lot.
So it's almost like you're like a detective of faulty circuits.
Yes.
You need that sharp eye to spot anything that's inconsistent and then know how to diagnose it and fix it.
Exactly.
Okay. So it makes sense why this guide really emphasizes, like, those certifications, like the IPCA 610.
Yeah, because think of it like this.
Yeah.
It's the difference between, like, having a basic understanding of car mechanics, right? And, like, being a certified, master technician.
Right.
The certification shows you've got that deeper knowledge, those deeper skills to really tackle those complex problems.
So you're not just building the circuits, you're also building your own credibility.
Yes.
And you're showing these potential employers that you're the real deal.
100%. Yeah. You're showing them you know what you're doing.
Okay, so let's talk career paths here.
Okay.
So we've already established this isn't your typical assembly line kind of gig.
Right.
What does the guide say about how somebody actually climbs the ranks in this field?
Okay, so it lays out a pretty clear progression.
Okay.
But there's a caveat here.
Okay.
You're not just passively moving up like a ladder.
Right.
You're actively shaping, like, your own path.
Okay, that's okay.
Through things like specialization, continuous learning.
Right.
Think of it kind of like a skill tree in a video game.
Okay.
Each level kind of unlocks these new abilities and opportunities.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so you start as an entry-level printed circuit board assembler.
Right.
What is that actually like?
So at that level, it's all about, like, mastering those fundamentals, learning how to read those blueprints, how to identify all those different components, perfecting those hand soldering skills.
Yeah.
You're probably working on, simpler boards at that point.
Right.
But you're building that really solid foundation for everything else that comes later.
So it's like you're learning the alphabet before you can write a novel.
Exactly. 100%.
Okay, so what comes after that?
So then, as you get more experience, you get more confidence, you might move up to, like, a junior printed circuit board assembler.
Okay.
This is where you start to take on a little more responsibility.
Like what?
So maybe you're operating some of those automated soldering machines we talked about.
Okay.
Maybe you're doing quality inspections. You might even be troubleshooting, like, those really basic assembly issues.
So you're not just following instructions, you're starting to make decisions and solve problems by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Okay, so you're moving up in the world.
Right. And then as you continue to hone those skills and that knowledge, you might find yourself on the path to becoming an experienced printed circuit board assembler.
Sure, it's okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because now you're not just assembling the boards, you're becoming like a go-to expert.
Okay, hit me with the details. What sets an experienced PCB assembler apart from the others?
Well, for one, they've usually mastered like those really advanced soldering techniques.
Okay.
Things like surface mount technology or SMT.
SMT? All right, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, and this is crucial for working on those super, super intricate boards.
Right.
The ones with the incredibly tiny components, like the kind you would find in like smartphones and other high-end electronics.
Right.
So we're talking like next level precision here.
Yeah.
A whole different set of skills.
Okay.
But it's not even just about the individual skill at this point.
What else?
It becomes about leadership too.
Okay, how so?
So experienced PCB assemblers are often like leading these small teams.
Makes sense.
They might mentor some of the newer assemblers.
Okay.
And they basically make sure that everything's running smoothly, efficiently on the production line.
So it's that blend of like you've got the technical side.
Yes.
But you've also got the leadership that you're kind of bringing to the table.
Exactly.
That seems to be what defines this particular career path.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's one more level, right?
There is. So
it's like the PCB assembler boss level.
Right, you got it. We're talking about the senior printed circuit board assembler.
Okay, what do they do?
So this is the person who's not just an expert in the field themselves,
right?
But they're a mentor, they're a leader.
Right.
They're kind of a visionary too,
okay.
Shaping the future of that entire assembly process.
So what does their day-to-day even look like then?
So they're overseeing that entire production process, like
right.
from start to finish.
Really?
Making sure those quality standards are being met, deadlines are hit, right. The team is working well together like a well-oiled machine.
Right.
They're often involved in training, development, mentoring the junior assemblers, and even collaborating with the engineers on like process improvements.
Wow.
Or even new product designs.
So they've really like moved up.
They've really moved up.
It's a very technical role, clearly, but it's also very collaborative.
So absolutely.
And strategic.
Very much so, yeah.
You're not just building circuits, you're building teams, you're building processes.
It's a lot of responsibility at that point. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And the guide emphasizes getting certified to really boost your career.
Yes.
It's not always mandatory, of course.
Right.
But those certifications, like the IPCA 610.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
That can be a game changer, especially for the people who want to move into those like really advanced roles.
So it's like having a VIT pass to the top.
Exactly. Oh, wow. It shows your employers you're serious, you've invested in yourself, you've invested in your skills.
Right.
You're ready to take on those challenging projects.
You're ready for it.
Yes.
Now, I love how this guide doesn't just, like, box you into a factory setting.
Oh, yeah.
It actually mentions other job titles that someone with PCB assembly skills could consider.
Right.
What are some of those, like, alternative career paths?
Well, one that really stood out to me was semiconductor processor.
Okay, yeah.
Which makes sense, right?
It does.
Instead of just assembling the boards that, hold those tiny chips, you're now involved in making the processors themselves. It's pretty cool.
It's like going from building a house to crafting this, like, intricate clockwork mechanism that tells time.
Yeah.
They both need that precision, that attention to detail.
100%.
But on a completely different scale.
Yeah, exactly. And the guide didn't stop there.
Really?
It also listed electronic musical instrument maker as like a potential career.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's really cool.
So you could go from soldering circuits for smartphones to like making custom synthesizers for rock stars.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
That's really cool.
I think that really speaks to the versatility of having a PCB assembly skill set.
Yeah.
It's not just about factories or mass production.
Right.
It's about understanding how electronics work at their most basic level.
Yeah.
And then using those skills in all kinds of different fields.
Wow.
From, like you said, consumer tech to, like you said, these artistic endeavors.
Yeah. It sounds like the possibilities are really kind of endless.
Totally.
If you're willing to think outside the box, or outside the circuit board, I guess, in this case.
That's right. Exactly.
But we can't forget that this career path isn't all like sunshine and roses.
Right.
This guide doesn't shy away from those potential downsides either.
Of course. It's really important to be realistic about these things.
Yeah.
One thing it highlights is that this job, it can be pretty physically demanding.
Okay. In what way?
We're talking, standing for hours on end.
Right.
You're using really fine motor skills to do those intricate tasks.
Right.
And sometimes you're making the same motions over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can lead to strain, discomfort if you're not really careful.
And we can't forget about those soldering fumes we talked about.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Working with heat, chemicals, there's always a risk there.
Yeah, and that's why the guide emphasizes those safety precautions so much.
Yeah.
Things like proper ventilation, wearing the protective gear,
Right.
having like an ergonomic workstation.
Right, making sure it's set up properly for you.
Yes, exactly. These aren't just like, suggestions.
Right.
They're essential to protect your health in the long run.
It's about finding that balance between, like, being productive,
Yes,
but taking care of yourself.
100%.
'Cause you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly.
Now, besides those, like physical demands,
Yeah.
are there any other challenges that someone who's interested in PCB assembly should be ready for?
Well, the guide mentions that it can be like a high-pressure work environment sometimes.
Okay.
Especially when those deadlines are coming up quickly.
Yeah.
And the quality standards are really strict.
Right.
And then there's the whole thing about having to constantly learn these new technologies as the industry changes.
So you always have to be learning.
Always be learning, always be adapting.
So it's not a job for someone who, like, wants to just clock in and clock out,
Right, exactly.
You got to be ready to, like, really put in the effort and learn and grow.
Yeah. But I think that's part of what makes it so rewarding.
Right. The guide actually has a whole section at the end on frequently asked questions.
Oh, yeah.
And one that jumped out at me was about handling, like, the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because this guide is upfront about, deadlines and quality standards. That can be stressful.
Oh, yeah. Especially in certain industries where a tiny little mistake can have, like, massive consequences.
Right. Like, we're talking aerospace, medical devices.
Yeah, those circuit boards.
Yeah.
They're, like, mission critical.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that kind of pressure? What does the guide say?
So the advice kind of boils down to you got to have strong problem-solving skills.
Yep.
You got to be able to stay calm even when things get a little crazy around you.
Right.
And this is important. Don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Right. You're not alone in that. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. You're part of a team.
So it's not just about being like this solo tech genius.
Right.
You got to be able to work with others.
100%. Be a team player.
Now, one last thing before we wrap up.
Yeah.
This guide talks about how automation is, kind of changing the game for PCB assemblers.
It is. I do.
What do you think about that? Like, is it something to be afraid of? Is it a good thing? What's your take?
I would say it's more like there's this wave coming and you just got to learn how to surf,
Okay.
The guide doesn't pretend like robots aren't a thing.
Yeah.
They are definitely becoming more common on assembly lines.
Right.
And look, they're great for those repetitive tasks, the
Yeah.
super high precision stuff.
Humans aren't always so good at that anyway.
No, we're not. But here's the key difference. Robots, they follow programming.
Right.
Humans, we solve the problems.
Oh, okay. So it's not about being replaced then.
No, no, no.
It's about our skills, those human skills. They become even more important, not less.
You got it. That's exactly what the guide's saying. The PCB assemblers who are going to do really well in the future,
Yeah.
they're the ones who can work with the automation.
Okay.
Think about it. You're programming the machines. You're troubleshooting when something goes wrong.
Right.
You're in charge of quality control on this whole other level.
Right.
That's stuff robots can't do.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Who knows what the future holds?
Right, exactly.
But I like that. I mean, it's like the more tech we have in the world, the more we need those like uniquely human skills to make sure that tech is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
And to keep pushing it forward.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Okay. Sounds good.
But we've given everyone a lot to think about.
Right. We definitely have.
I mean, we've explored this whole intricate world of PCB assembly.
Yeah.
From soldering those tiny little components
So tiny.
to like the bigger picture.
Right.
How this whole industry is changing, how tech is changing it.
Always evolving.
We've talked about what you need to learn, the challenges you'll face on the job.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
The different ways you can build a career. And we even talked about some of the like potential hazards of the job.
Safety first.
Because, hey, it's important to know what you're getting into.
100%.
So as we like power down our metaphorical soldering irons for the day,
I like that.
we want to leave you with this.
Okay.
Think about the next time you, I don't know, pick up your smartphone or use your laptop or get lost in a video game.
All those things.
Take a second, right? appreciate the work that goes into building the tech that we use every single day.
Right, because there's somebody who put that together.
Yeah. And PCB assembly. That's where a lot of that magic happens.
Yeah, it's a hidden world.
It really is. It's this cool blend of really meticulous skill and like boundless potential.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe that's where your future is.